Om. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurur Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Sadashiva Samarambham, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmadacharya Paryanta, Vande Guru Parampara, Sthapakaya Dharmasya, Sarvadharmaswarupine, Avatara Varishtaya, Ramakrishnaya Te Namah. Om Krishnaya Vasudevaya, Devaki Nandanaya Cha, Nandagopakumaraya, Govindaya Namo Namah. Krishnaya Vasudevaya, Haraye Paramatmane, Pranadakleshanashaya, Govindaya Namo Namah. Om Bhadram Karne Vishunayama Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatra Sthirairangehi Sustuvam Sastanubi Vyashema Devahidam Yadayu Swastina Indro Vruddhasrava Swastina Pusha Vishwavedha Swastinastyasho Varishtanemi Swastino Brahaspadar Dadadu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om to all. Let's start with the Shubha Sankalpam. Atmabodham as the enabler for all of us towards the self-knowledge or gaining of the self-knowledge. This is one of the profound compositions of Adi Shankara Bhagavad that enables us to know the terms, terminologies, the underlying aspects of our literatures. Beyond enabling or beyond telling us this scripture, this Prakarana Grindam, this is an enabler text, helps us in knowing who truly are we, what is our true purpose in life. So one has to have a practical way of knowing the true self. So why do we need to understand the true self? Because that only will serve us in a practical way to overcome the pains and sufferings in life. Ultimately, everyone looks at peace, prosperity, positivity, well-being, and so on and so forth. So, towards that, it's very important to understand who truly are we. Then only we can design our life. So that is where Atmabodha as a scripture, as a Prakarana Grindam, helps us in knowing what is the God in life, who truly am I. And from all these scriptures, we are consistently learning and seeing that our true self, the nature of the true self is Satchidananda Atma, that is existence, consciousness, bliss, absolute. Sada Chida Ananda. When we say Sad, Sad is all about the existence. Sat is all about the isness. Sat is all about the underlying reality in us. Sat is all about the truth in us. Sat is all about being with that truth. Correct? So, that truth which is not subject to change, that is always same, which has always been and will always be same. So Sat is our existence and it will never change. So the nature of true self is Satchidananda Atma. Sat is all about the isness, our own existence. And that is the reality, that is the truth. Our existence is the only reality, that is the only truth. And that truth is never changing. And Chid is the consciousness, Chit is the awareness. Meaning, we are aware of ourselves. We are aware of the things which are happening. We are able to know things which are happening in this body, in and around the body, what is happening around us. So meaning, we are able to know the changes that are happening. We are able to observe things. We are able to think about different things such as ideas, thinking about new concepts. So then, beyond the existence, you also need to be aware of that. You need to be conscious about that, because you all are aware of the ideas which are coming. You all are aware of the kind of observations that you are making. Correct? So, Sat is existence, Chid is the awareness, and Ananda. Ananda means the supreme bliss or the supreme happiness. And this happiness is not dependent on anything. Because by our true nature, we are inherently happy. So let us look into our three avasthas, the avasthatrayam that we all are undergoing. You all know that in the deep sleep, without the help of these faculties, everybody is in the Paripurna Ananda. Correct? See, in the deep sleep, you know that the mind, body, intellect, senses, relationships, the connections that we have, everything is absent. In the absence of all these objects, we get the extreme happiness. Right? In the absence of these upadhis, we are having peace of mind. And when these upadhis are absent, and when you get up after a deep sleep, the feeling that we get is the complete recharge or rejuvenation. Correct? So, what is enabling them to refresh? The absence of objects or the impersonalization of the objects which are happening in the deep sleep, meaning these objects are plunging into the reality that is the truth. So without any modifications or without any identifications of these realities, identifications of these objects, when the objects are completely merged into the subject, we are still happy because we are not doing any transactions in the deep sleep. Every object is plunged Every object is not having any identity there. So ultimately, what is happening in the deep sleep is we are with that true nature. But due to ignorance, we are not knowing that. So that is what it's happening in all of us in the day, in the night, correct? But what is happening? We all are in a kind of a cycle where we are always trying to get happiness from outside, perpetually seeking happiness from the objects. And we also know up to a great extent that the happiness that we get out of the objects are not going to be perpetual. It is not going to last. But still, our build is like that, because the outgoing tendency of the mind and the world that we live and the influences of the world, what is happening is basically we all are trying to go outward and see whether we can get perpetual happiness from the material objects or the things that we transact in life. So Vedantam is stressing us that you are the real source of happiness. You are the the source of everything. You are having the potential, right, to be inherently happy. And it is not only the happiness. You are the truth. You are the reality, and you are misidentifying yourself with the changing objects and thinking that you are a limited being. So Vedantam is again and again saying us that you are the Satchidananda. You are the existence, consciousness, bliss principle. And your nature, your Atman, your Brahman is the limitless consciousness, existence, bliss principle. But due to our vasanas, due to our problems of mind, what we are trying is basically we are associating ourselves with the body, mind, sense, intellect complexes. And the mind is also having the capacity to borrow the existence and reflect that consciousness. So ultimately, mind is also creating a superficial feeling that I am the knower of all the experiences. Correct? I am the knower of all the experiences. But if you look at the deep sleep, where is the mind? Mind is not really experiencing the Anandam, correct? We are with that Nijasthiti. So then how our mind can say I am the knower of all experiences? So where the mind is standing, so what is the substratum of the mind? That is what we all have to look into. Let's use this Sandhya Vela to look into this truth. Who am I? What is that light which is illuminating my mind, illuminating my body, enabling me to think, enabling me to act, enabling me to know the objects. So this self, that is my reality. This is the truth. This is the adhishtanam. This is the subtle substratum of all objective phenomena. Gaining this knowledge and having the clarity of this knowledge, and gaining or having clarity is ultimately we are being with that, meaning there is no concept of becoming in life. It's all about being in life. So this knowledge only will give a liberation to Jiva. This knowledge only will make the Jiva free. What is the knowledge? Our Nija Surupam. That is unchanging. That is the witness consciousness. That is having, we cannot say its attributes like Satchidananda. It is Satchidananda Atma. That has got all possibilities, that has got all potential. So that is also not changing, that cannot change. This is the Avastatraya Sakshi. In Srimad Bhagavatam, during the Krishna Avatara Sandarbham, the rishis chant this sloka: Satyavradam Satyaparam Trisatyam Satyasya Yonim Nihidam Cha Satye Satyasya Satyam Rida Satya Netram Satyatmakam Tvam Sharanam Prapanna. So, Rida Satya Netram, so the truth that will never change. Bhagavan Krishna as the embodiment of the truth. Avasthabhi na vibhijaradi tat satyam, the thing that never changes, that cannot be changed, that cannot change with the space, time, object, causation. So one has to realize this truth within. That is the ultimate purpose of the human life, and only few humans are, or only few human beings will get the blessings to get into the path. Bhagavan in Gita says Manushyanam Sahasreshu. So among many, only few only will get this logic, will start understanding this, or will appreciate this and see that there is much richness to be explored in life. Because my ultimate goal in life is not just have a mere life and die. So with the capabilities that I have, including the current body which we all have, with this body, mind, intellect, sense, faculties, knowing this truth, learning this from the Shastram, from the lineage, from the Guru Parampara, then getting the knowledge and making it as our own wisdom, Shastram, Yukti, and the Swanubhava, that experience or the wisdom should happen within us. So Guru, Shastram, etc. can only direct us, can only give knowledge, but one has to gain is the wisdom out of this knowledge. So that is where the Swanubhava or the individual experience is needed. Though individuals experience, but the truth is same. There is only one truth. So the first and foremost step, as I mentioned in the last session also, bhakti is the important aspect that we need to have. When we say bhakti, it is the single-minded devotion. So when we know that there is a higher truth in me, the respect, the love, the dedication, the affection, the sharanagati, the pravati towards that truth, that is bhakti. And bhakti can be through different ways. It can be through, again going back to Srimad Bhagavatam, the Navavida Bhakti, if you see, Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam. So, can be through the Nirandara Satsangam, Sravanam, and singing Kirtanam about Lord, chanting mantra, doing puja, Smaranam, reflecting, contemplating, meditating, Padasevanam, doing job as a service, doing work as a service to God, helping people, right? Everything in the form of service to God. Archanam, again, doing puja, doing rituals. When we say Archanam, worshipping God in different ways. Vandanam, again, having the Nirandara Smarana, Dhyanam. Dasyam, as a servant. Lord as the master and I as the servant. Sakhyam. Sakhyam is coming at the last phase. When you say Sakhyam, the kind of conviction that happens in one's life that I am not different from that. The stage of, reaching to Tattvamasi. There is no difference between me and God. And this is not the reference that is happening from the plane of ego. When we say that there is no difference between Jiva and, Jiva Atma and Paramatma, and again it is not compared or contrasted from the plane of ego. If somebody says that, there is no difference, and it is again at the plane of ego. So this Sakhyam is when the conviction happens in a person's inner mind. I cannot be different. And ultimately, the Atmanivedana is the Prabhati. So that is where Bhakti plays a major role. From Bhakti only Jnanam will come. You can see a lot of great personalities, right? Sometimes you may feel that they are a kind of, jnanis, and sometimes you feel that there are a lot of, bhaktas. Ultimately, we have to understand that Bhakti and Jnanam both are same, and through Bhakti only Jnanam will come. Jnanam will not just happen. It is not the reading a book or writing notes, etc. So this is basically the Paravidya we are talking. It is not about studying a subject or studying a programming language or something like that. Correct? So here Bhakti is the first and foremost attribute we all need to have. Bhakti about what? Bhakti about the higher reality which is there in all of us. And that reality is the universal force. And once we have the Bhakti, the Kripa will happen, the blessings will happen. Right? So until and unless the blessings happen, we will never get Satsanga Saubhagyam. So here, one thing we need to understand is the self which is already the core, the perfect one. What is happening is basically we are losing awareness of that self. As a jiva, the Maya plays the trick of, making that jiva losing that awareness. What is that awareness? I am this pure existence, consciousness, bliss principle. So this is the kind of, trap the Maya plays. Bhagavan in Bhagavad Gita, last chapter says, Ishvara sarvabhudanam hridyeshe Arjuna tishtati Ramayan sarvabhudani yandra arudhani maya. And the influence of the material force or the material energy, right, is playing a role in terms of, making one feeling that or losing the awareness of the self. But otherwise, Ishwaran, the Lord, is sitting in the heart of everyone. Sarva Bhudana Hriddeshe Arjuna Dishtati. Or again, if you go back to Chadusloki Bhagavatam says, Bhagavan Sarva Bhudanam Adhyaksho Avastido Guham. Bhagavan sitting inside all of us as the Adhyaksha. Adhyaksha meaning the master. Bhagavan Sarva Bhudanam Adhyaksho Avastido Guham Vedahya Pradiruddhena Prajnanena Chakeshitam. Or again, if you go back to Bhagavad Gita, Ishvara Sarvabhudanam Hridyeshe Arjuna Tishtati Ramayan Sarvabhudani Yantra Arudani Maya. So, but the influence of Maya creates, the drift in the jiva. What is the drift? The kind of superficial associations that get created in the mind and making the feeling that I am a limited being. Right? So what happens is basically, it is just like, the scenario of a creator who ultimately gets trapped as a creation, or maybe a hunter who started hunting and ultimately becomes hunted. Correct? So ultimately we get trapped into the objects that we are dealing in this life. So this was the problem. Even Brahma, when Bhagavan gave the blessings to start this Srishti, then going back to Chatusloki Bhagavatam, Brahma was very much confused. Brahma, probably the same scenario, the hunter becoming hunted, or the creator getting trapped into the creation. Brahma also got trapped into this. So that is where Bhagavan gives this Bhagavata Sandesham as the Chatusloki Bhagavatam, saying that the reality of creation is like this, the Anvaya Vyatireka Bhava, right? So the two realms are there. One is basically the consciousness plane, and the other one is the matter plane. And hey Brahma, please understand that the matter plane cannot exist without the consciousness plane, without the consciousness force. Correct? And consciousness will always exist, and there is no dependency with the matter principle. Know this truth and do this Srishti. That is how Chatusloki Bhagavatam goes. Ahameva sameva agre nanyat yat sadasatparam paschadaham yadedasya vashishyedasosmaham hridertham yat pradiyeda na pradiyeda jatmani tadvidyad atmano mayam yada bhaso yada damaha. So you know this. With this clarity you do this Srishti. You will not get trapped. Right? This is basically the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. So from this Chatusloki Bhagavatam, the entire Srimad Bhagavata Puranam is elaborated into these many skandams and chapters. So Karma Yogam is the only way, because as Grihasthashramis, we cannot run away. So the answer is basically these all tattvams will help us, but one should know the process to liberate ourselves, especially because we all have to do the karma in different realms, correct? And karma has to be converted to karma yoga. When I say karma yoga, it's all about engaging all of us in such a way that the action or activity will free us, rather than we getting into the actions or activities and getting entangled. The actions or activities should enable us to bring freedom in us, and the actions that one has to do in life, ultimately these actions, right, should enable one to lead to know the higher reality. When we say freedom, knowing our higher reality is very important. So action should lead us to know our higher reality. That should be the ultimate purpose of doing the action, not just getting into action and getting trapped into the action. Action should be used as an enabler to know the higher reality in us. That only will bring freedom in us. Correct? So that is where the prasada buddhi Bhagavan Krishna beautifully explains this in the chapter 3, Karma Yoga of Bhagavad Gita. So ultimately, one has to understand that the individualized soul, so we call it as Jivatma, right, is the reflection of the existence, consciousness, bliss principle, the Brahman or the Atman, and the mind reflecting that consciousness through this Upadhi. When I say Upadhi, this body, mind, intellect, sense, etc. So any Jiva should have this clarity. So I am the reflection, because when I say I am the reflection, the mind is the subtle organ here. The mind has already created the false notions that I am the experiencer, I am the enjoyer, etc. So now the Jiva should get the clarity that the Brahman, the Atman, the power within me as the existence, consciousness, bliss principle is borrowed by this mind, and the mind is reflecting that consciousness in the form of a reflected consciousness and creating these assumed personalities through this medium called as the body, mind, intellect, sense. This so called as our identity that we have created. And please understand that these reflections or the motions are happening in the mind. There is no problem, there is no distortion in the original consciousness. Clear? So there is distortion or reflection or motion happening in the individual mind. So that is the only problem here. That mind has to be clear, cleansed. The unwanted reflections should be cut down, and it has to be seamless. Once we reach that state, the kind of distance that we created, the superficial distance created, or the notional distance created, ultimately will come less and less and less. And so that is where the swabhavam to Swarupa Sakshatkaram happens, and that is the ultimate aim, so called as the Ishvara Sakshatkaram or Brahma Sakshatkaram or Atma Sakshatkaram, right? And this is not a sprint, especially in the modern management techniques. People call it sprints, and every sprint should get results. And life is not a sprint actually, and life is just a journey. And perfection is not just a milestone actually, and perfection is just a part of this journey. And I think continuous evolution. This is the whole purpose of a spiritual life, a spiritual journey. And in fact, there is nothing like a spiritual life or a material life. Everything is just spiritual. We all are just spiritual beings, where with a human body we are having the human centric experiences and things like that. That's it. That is the simpler way of understanding, or that is a simpler or a practical way of living our life. With that, we will just get into the few verses of Atmabodha. Today we will start with the 23rd verse. Ragecha sukha dukkhadi buddhau satyam pravartate sushuptau nasti tannashe tasmada buddhestu natmanaha. Ragecha sukha dukkhadi buddhau satyam pravartate sushuptau nasti tannashe tasmad buddhe tu na atmanaha. So what is saying? Raga Ichha, Sukham, Dukham, Ityadi. Attachment, desire, pleasure, pain, and so on are perceived to exist only as long as the intellect mind functions. So, is there any attachment or desire or pleasure happening in the deep sleep when the intellect and mind are not working? Because they are not perceived in the deep sleep when the mind intellect ceases to exist. Therefore, all these, say attachment, desire, anger, etc., they all belong to the mind alone, not belonging to the Atman, not belonging to your true reality. See, these are called as the abhimanam, maybe we can say the identifications that one is having in the Jagrat, Swapnam, etc. And whereas in Sushupti, in the deep sleep, when there is no mind, correct? So, is it existing? When the mind is not there, obviously it's also disappearing. Then it is very logical that Atman is the non-dual consciousness and it is not affected by anything that happens in our body, mind, intellect, senses. There is no kalangam. You cannot do the adhyasam or adhyaropam on the true self. That true self has no kalangam. That true self has got no any limitations. All these limitations are at the plane of your mind and intellect. Because this is very clear in the Sushupti, when the mind and intellect, when they are absent, we are not having any problem. That is why we are getting good sleep. We are with the, that core, we are with that truth. All the objects have disappeared. All, the ubadhis plunge into that reality. So, we are with the subject. And that subject is non-dual consciousness. And it is not affected by any of the problems of the body, mind, intellect, senses. Correct? So, there is no place for the avidya in this Brahman. These all are avidya, right? And the avidya is at which plane? Avidya is at the plane of the objects. Avidya or Maya is at the plane of objects. That includes the subtle mind, body, intellect, senses, relationships, the world that we have, all the kind of attributes that we deal with, they all are avidya. They all are the part of Maya. And there is no position for the avidya in your inner core, because your inner core is Atman, and Atman is non-dual consciousness and it is not affected by anything, because those all are the part of Prakriti. So Purushan is not having any connection with the Prakriti in terms of adding kalangam or anything. No impurities can be mixed with the Purushan. So Prakriti is an independent principle. Prakriti is a matter principle. Kalangam or the limitations are there at the level of Prakriti. Clear? 24th verse. Prakashorkasya toyasya shaityamagne yadoshnata subhava satchidananda Nitya nirmaladatmana. So yada prakasha arkasya toyasya shaityam Akne Ushnata Akne Yado Ushnata Swabhava Satchidananda Nitya Nirmalata Atmanaha. So, the nature of Atman is existence, consciousness, bliss, absolute. It is eternal, just as how Pragasha Arkasya, just as luminosity is the nature of sun, or Toyasya Shaityam Akne Yadoshnada. So, just as luminosity is the attribute or the nature of the sun, coolness is that of water, or heat of fire. Similarly, the nature of Atman is eternity. It is pure. It is the existence, consciousness, bliss, absolute. And please note that Atman, we cannot give certain attributes like, yeah, Atman is existence, Atman is consciousness, Atman is, eternal, etc. This, we cannot call it as, the qualities, but it is the essential nature. Please understand that. Essential nature itself is that. Meaning, it's always present, and you think about anything that you can imagine, all those qualities will be there in the Atman. Be it love, be it compassion, be it simplicity, right? Be it humility, everything is there. So we can say that these all are the essential nature of Atman. What is that? The purity, the bliss, the existence, consciousness, bliss absolute. It is compared like how the luminosity is the nature of sun, or how the coolness is the nature of water, how the heat is the nature of fire. Similar to that, Atman is pure, Atman is existence, consciousness, bliss, absolute. And it's always present in us, right? Only problem is this is obscured by Maya, it's covered by Maya. Atma is Atma Satchid Ananda Nirmalam. That is the word. Satchidananda Nitya Nirmalam. Atma is the nature of existence, and it is not a product or a part or a produce of the matter. This Atma is pervading everywhere. This Atma is pure existence. And Atma is not available for recognition without a medium. Right? The Atma is not available to recognize without a medium. So it means this is the all-pervading conscious force, and we are that. This is the great affirmation this sloka is giving to us. Verse number 25.
One question.
Yeah.
So, for a sun and luminosity, all those things, right? So, that all we can experience. How we can experience the attribute of Atma?
Yeah. So, only way to experience is to be with that. Only way to experience this subject is being with the subject. Not being with the object will enable us to understand the subject. So that is where one has to transcend the limitations of the mind. Right? The substratum or the adhishtanam of the mind is this existence, consciousness, bliss principle. We call it as the Atma. So the only way is basically, you might have seen pole vault, right? For us to jump and cross, we use a pole, correct? And you all agree that you need a pole to jump as high as possible, correct? And once you are there at the top, will you also try to take the pole along with your jumping? No, we cannot. So that is where, with the help of the upadhi, so called as the mind, and when we say mind, please understand that the level of mind, what we are talking is basically the highest level of mind, so called as the pure mind. That pure mind, with the help of the pure mind, we are able to understand the adhishtanam, so called as the true reality of all of us, so called as the Swarupam. So in a very simpler way, we can say the Andakarana Shuddhi, the mental purification that is happening in the mind. From nowhere the mind is becoming cleansed, the Andakarana Shuddhi, to the Andakarana Naischalyam, the stillness of the mind. Ultimately what happens is basically the unwanted reflections in the mind will be very, 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 very less. Ultimately we are closer to the reality, and ultimately knowing the reality is just becoming the reality. Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati. This is not again a sprint, this is just a journey, and we cannot do the assessments like when did I, or when will I get the Andakarana Shuddhi, or will I get 100 out of 100, etc. So these all are the spiritual journey one has to undergo. So one will be able to really understand that the spiritual growth is happening through different ways. Maybe the clarity that one gets, the kind of suppression capability of disturbances coming into your life, not getting affected by unwanted pressures and thoughts, right? And again, capable to overcome circumstances or any circumstances that come into your life, and much, much beyond, the kind of firm conviction that one will have in life that I am always guided by that higher reality, right? This is the real force which is coming, and for reaching to this level, the mind has to cooperate. So the answer is basically how to know the reality. Use the upadhi called as the mind, and that mind has to get purified over a period of time, and ultimately that mind will ultimately become like your pole of the pole vault, so that you can just leave that and be with that. And it doesn't mean that you get rid of mind and all. The influence of mind in creating problems and all will not be there actually. Ultimately the life will become a leela. This is the practical way of reaching to that sthiti. I hope it is clear, or please let me know if you need more explanation.
Thank you. Maybe you can suggest some tool like Paul to jump.
Definitely, we'll do that. In fact, at a very high level, the 4 Ds of Sampradayam, that is the discrimination, dispassion, discipline, and desire. And discipline plays a major role. What are those disciplines? So that is where the Shatka Sampatti comes, the Ashtanga Yogam comes. Many ways are there, and so one has to practically identify, understand, and work. And that is where the sadhana, upasana, sampradayam helps each one of us. And again, doing efforts from our side is important, but much before that, or much beyond that, the shraddha has to happen. Kripa should come from the Lord. Then the Guru Kadaksham, Guru Kripa, Shastra Kripa, And once these things are there, the Atma Kripa will obviously help us, to reach wherever you want. I mean, in fact, this is not a destination and, say, yeah, I've reached. This is just a journey. So these all are the conducive things that should happen in our life. So Kripa, Bhakti, Shraddha, Bhakti, Jnana, Yogyata Prapti, Jnanarjanam. Right. So ultimately, one should see the real purpose in life. And it doesn't mean that there is a running away from the system or running away from the responsibilities in life. You will become a super good individual. You will become a super good, grahasthasrami, doing the karma of a graham or needed for the family to the world. But at the same time, that person will also really understand the true purpose of life. So this is the whole topic the entire Sampradayam discusses. Okay, so we will discuss in depth about different ways, techniques. In fact, we have discussed many times, but definitely we need to have some refreshers. We'll look into that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
So now the verse number 25. Atmana Satchidam Shacha Buddhir Vrittirididvayam Samyojyacha Vivekena Janamidi Pravartate. So here Atma is referred as the Swayam Prakasham Satchidam Shascha. We get the the notion of I know by the union of two things. First thing is the Sat, Chitta, Ananda, the three terms which we used in the beginning today. The existence, consciousness aspect of the self. This is very much needed. Correct? When I say I know about this, as an individual, I should exist. I should be aware of the thing which is happening. Correct? See, if you see, the self has the three attributes, if you see, existence, consciousness, bliss. And when you say I know, there should be an existence, there should be a consciousness aspect. Clear? And when you say I know this, that is where the mind and intellect working and creating a thought wave. Are you all with me? So the union of Atman and mind, when we say, is an effect of what? The existence and the consciousness aspects of the self plus the thought waves that happen in our intellect. When I say thought wave, it is basically mind and intellect working together. That is how.
It's the reflection of the Atman on the mind.
Atman on the mind, absolutely, because mind always reflect the consciousness principle, right? So what happens is basically the existence and the consciousness aspect of the self is reflected in the mind, and the thought wave which is created out of the intellect and mind. That is how we always have any notions arising in us that I know, I am. Right? I went or I did. I know this, I know that. But one thing you need to understand that the existence and the consciousness, these two terms which I mentioned, you also rightly mentioned the mind has borrowed these two as attributes from the original consciousness. Correct? But do you see a contradiction here? Because mind has not created the existence and consciousness here. mind has just merely borrowed these two from the original consciousness and applied the thought waves. So do you see a contradiction here when you say this is just reflection? Where can the mind reflect that with its own capability?
Sorry, didn't understand.
How? So you mentioned that, let us bring that aside. So when one says that I know, there is a notion arising in us that I know. What we need to understand is basically, for you to know, you need to exist. And you should also be aware. Correct? First you need to exist and you need to be aware. And now coming to I know this or I know that. So that is where the thought wave that is coming in our intellect with the help of mind. So for us to comment about any topic, see here the topic knowledge is secondary. Before that there needs to be existence and consciousness aspect of yourself for any thought wave to happen. Are you all with me?
Yes, that's the difference between a dead body and a live.
If you are not clear, please stop me. I will explain. If you are not clear, anybody, because without knowing this, you cannot progress further. Okay, I hope you all are clear. See what again? I will try to simplify it. When you say I know physics, physics is the subject which you are trying to describe or demonstrate or explain. So before coming into physics, there is somebody who is learning the physics. There is, that person has to, learn, right? There needs to be an existence. And the learning happens in the awareness of that person. That is where the consciousness, the awareness. So the existence and the awareness aspect of the self has to be there before I say I learned this, I know this, I studied this, etc. So the existence and the awareness or the consciousness aspect of the self has to be there. That will work with the thought wave of your mind and intellect and enable one to say, I know this subject, I can give a lecture. So now my point is basically the existence consciousness aspect of the self is borrowed by our mind, and the mind is capable to reflect and integrate the thought waves of the intellect and mind and create a perception that I am the one who knows physics. I can authoritatively tell or give a lecture. So ultimately the mind is borrowing the existence consciousness aspect of the self and mixing with the thought wave of the intellect mind and creating the notion that I know subject, I know this, I can explain, I can give a good lecture. Are you all with me?
Yeah.
So now the point is basically the existence consciousness aspects of the self and the thought waves, they are at the different planes. Correct? So now we cannot say that spirit and matter will coexist. So here the Ubadi called as mind is capable to borrow the existence consciousness aspect of the self and mix with the thought wave and create superficial notions like I know this, I know that, I am perfect, etc. But now this sloka is saying that you see who is giving the existence and consciousness aspect for you to create a notion. Is it mind? Mind cannot give. Correct. So now what has happened is basically due to the mind has created a kind of illusory superimposition. Illusory superimposition of what? Illusory superimposition of the existence and consciousness aspect of the self into the thought wave and create a kind of notion. And mind is thinking that, yeah, I am the doer. The ego plays a role there. So mind has created the motion, mind has created the modification. And again, based on the guna, sattvam, rajas, tamas, mind will also play different roles, like, yeah, I am a great person. Or maybe mind may also say, I am humble, I know, I can explain, etc. So it can vary based on the gunas which are coming into the mind. Next, verse number 26. Atmano vikriya nasti buddher bodho na jatvidi jiva sarvamalam jnatva jnata drishtedi muhyati. Atmano vikriya nasti buddher bodho na jatvidi jiva sarvamalam jnatva jnata drishtedi muhyati. The Atman never undergoes change. And also buddher bodho na jatvidi, and the buddhi is never endowed with the consciousness, but the man believes Atman to be identical with the buddhi and falls under the delusion that he is the seer and the knower. So here what happens again, this problem with reflection, right? So Atman is the spirit principle, is the consciousness principle. It is the actionless, changeless, stainless, attributeless, partless, unmanifested, incomprehensible, free principle. The problem is basically upadhi dosham, all the mixing and reflections and superimpositions that are happening. But the pure sun is same, original sun is same, only the reflections, and the reflections are happening due to the different upadhis. That includes the type of body, type of mind, and the influence of gunas in mind, the influence of old traits in mind, influence of people around, influence of whatnot. So that is where the delusion happens in us, thinking that I am the observer, I am the experiencer. When you say I am the experiencer, observer, ego, the false notions created by the mind out of the reflection and the superimposition. But whereas the original principle is, Swarupam is the spirit, it is the bodham, it is the consciousness principle, it is the absolute bliss, it is the actionless principle, it is the changeless principle, it is the partless principle, because you cannot create a part out of that. It is the unmanifested principle, and it is free from all other traces of matter. But due to our ignorance, we superimpose, or we do the adhyasam or adhyarobam and feels that I am a limited individual, and forget the true source, true nature, true identity of all of us. Swarupa Vismriti. Swarupa Vismriti is called as Ajnanam, is called as ignorance. So this is the problem that human beings are undergoing. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Visishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo. Om Kayena Vacha Manasindriyarva Buddhyatmana va prakrite svabhava karomi sakalam parasmai Narayanayedi samarpayami sarvam Narayanayedi samarpayami.